As you can see, the boulevard by the Dal Lake is a chock-a-block full with tourists. Most people agree that there is a significant improvement in the security situation on the ground here in the Kashmir Valley. It is this basis that the Chief Minister is repeatedly referring to when he says that the time has come to lift the Armed Forces Special Powers Act from parts of the state. The army has expressed deep apprehensions about this privately to the Chief Minister. Many people are of the view that it would be premature to do any such thing. On the program today, Omar Abdullah sits down for an exclusive, in-depth interview. He's our newsmaker today. Omar, an announcement by you on the fact that in a few days, and you did not define these few days, but you just said in a few days there would be a partial withdrawal of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act from some areas of the state. This has triggered a kind of national debate right now. It's one that's happened many times before. I must ask you first, do you stand by the announcement you made?
Well, I announced an intention, and I stand by that intention. I didn't announce a decision, because obviously there are two areas where this has to be discussed before a final decision is taken, and then the governor is requested, because I believe the law requires that the final notification be issued by the governor. Those two bodies are the Unified Command and the State Cabinet. So I was very careful to announce an intention, not a decision. In the run-up to a final decision, both the Unified Command as well as the State Cabinet will be consulted and a suitable decision taken.
When you say that it was an intention but not a decision, does that mean that the final word has not been spoken on this issue yet?
Well, my intentions are clear. I would very much like that the benefits of the growing peace percolate down to the people who deserve to see some advantage flowing to them from this. And I do understand that there are reservations. But, you know, if you wait for the final gun to be silenced before you start doing anything, then I think it's going to be an awful long wait. There has been, as a result of what I said, a debate triggered. And I think that's a good thing. Any debate is healthy. And there are pros and cons to every position that gets taken. As I said, there are two bodies that will discuss this, and ultimately a decision will be taken. But I think it's also important to understand that what I said was not said in isolation. I have had numerous discussions at various levels, both within the state as well as with the central government leadership. So it's not as if I woke up one fine day and just decided,
and just shot your mouth off.
Let me just shoot myself in the foot and shoot my mouth off, as some people would like to believe. What I said was a considered statement on the basis of some pretty long-term discussions that have been going on.
But when you look at the sort of uproar that announcement has created, do you sort of feel that you should not have gone public with an intention till it was a decision?
Then the uproar would have followed after a decision. And then people would have said that, both ways I'd have lost out. Then people would have said that my decision was either dictatorial or wrong or whatever else. This way, whatever you decide, at least the public mood has been prepared for it one way or the other. That's...
How firm is your intention? Maybe that's another way of putting it. How firm is your intention if many of the other stakeholders, primary among them the army, resists this very deeply?
Well, I'm not going to get into a debate with the army over the media. I've had discussions with the army, formal and informal. I will continue to have those discussions. Beyond that, I really don't want to get into any sort of public debate, because it'll become a he said, she said sort of scenario. Then if I say something, the army will come back at me, and it really doesn't behove both the institution of the Office of the Chief Minister or the institution of the army to get into a public slanging match with each other.
Fair enough, but one of the things that has been suggested is that there has been no meeting yet of the Unified Command, which you chair, with the Armed Forces Special Powers Act on the agenda. Your critics would then turn around and say, whatever be your intention, you cannot be unilateral in a state like Jammu and Kashmir. You have to consult the army. What would you say to that?
Well, first and foremost, I'm not being unilateral. Discussions have taken place at various levels.
Formally?
Formal discussions.
Formally at the Unified Command?
There have been discussions in the Unified Command. Let me also explain to you that a Unified Command is usually not called to debate or discuss a single point agenda. But to suggest that the Armed Forces Special Powers Act has not come up in the Unified Command would be incorrect. The decision to set up two committees with the Corps Commanders, the State Home Secretary and the State DG as a part of those committees was a decision that flowed from discussions in the Unified Command. And as I've said, before a final decision is taken, the Unified Command will be convened.
You are saying that this has been formally discussed at the Unified Command, but when the committees were set up, it was a long time back. It was the beginning of this year, if I'm not wrong.
Well, sure. That just goes to show how long it's taken to actually get some forward movement in terms of discussions. For the longest of time, unfortunately, these committees didn't meet. I had to then formally raise this issue again in the Unified Command and instruct these people that they should meet and discuss this issue. I believe there have been some formal and some informal meetings as a result of these committees.
I was going to ask you exactly that these committees were announced at, in Delhi, in fact, at the end of, as part of an 8-point sort of peace proposal.
No, they weren't. These committees were very much my decision. They had nothing to do with Delhi.
These were your decisions?
These decisions, the decision for wider consultation between the state government and the army was very much my decision. It had nothing to do with Delhi.
Why have the committees therefore not met as frequently as you would have liked them to?
Possibly because of the divergent views in terms of whether the Armed Forces Special Powers Act should be removed or not.
There have been some incidents of violence, grenade attacks and so on. I think now about 5 in the last maybe 7-8 days since you made the announcement, or 10 days since you made the announcement. We had a senior leader of your party, Mustafa Kamal, actually suggesting that the army was behind it. It was a comment that was retracted very fast. But don't you think this is exactly the kind of comment that sends out the wrong message?
This is exactly what I don't need. I mean, unfortunately, not only is Dr. Mustafa Kamal a senior member of the party, he also happens to be my father's brother, which puts me in an extremely awkward position. But I can't tell you the number of times I have requested my father to please tell Dr. Mustafa Kamal to think twice before he issues statements, because not only does he shoot himself in the foot, he puts me in an extremely difficult and awkward position. And God knows he has enough people to target politically, which is what he should be doing as the additional general secretary of the party. We have opposition both in the mainstream as well as in the separatist camp. I don't think he needs to now start issuing statements about the army or about my alliance partners. It's not his mandate, and it honestly does make life really difficult for me.
Do you regret his statement? Given
I do regret his statement. I wish he hadn't said it, and he did clarify it. But let's face it, by then the damage had been done, and I ended up making an enemy out of the army that I didn't need to do. And I did try after that to put things into the correct perspective with my own statement. But like I said, I think to some extent the damage had been done. That having been said, I think you people are also guilty of some amount of drawing of
battle lines,
of correlations. I mean, the fact that there have been a certain number of grenade attacks since I announced the intention would suggest that there haven't been grenade attacks before that. There have been grenade attacks from time to time. It's happened. Nobody suggests that militancy has completely ended, nor does anybody suggest that there will be no militancy after this. All I'm saying is that perhaps the time has come when we start considering. And again, I mean, at the end of the day, these sort of things have even been discussed in the highest forum of the Cabinet Committee on Security. So it's not sort of an isolated opinion or an isolated view.
But here's the cold fact. The cold fact is that at the Cabinet Committee on Security, the Home Minister on one side, the Defence Minister and the Finance Minister on the other, Mr. Chidambaram has said this on record, that he was not able to push this proposal through earlier when he did try. So at the highest levels of decision-making in this country, there is no consensus on AFSPA. Given that absence of consensus, should you be proceeding, should you be going ahead?
Look, again, if we waited for consensus on every single issue before we moved forward, where would we go? I mean, was there actual consensus on the civil nuclear deal? There wasn't, but you went ahead with it. Has there been unilateral consensus or uniform consensus on economic reforms? There haven't been, but you've gone ahead with it. Is there consensus on how to deal with the Maoist or the Naxalite problem? There isn't. There isn't consensus on our domestic or on our foreign policy. But we go ahead anyway. The idea is that you must try and forge to the best extent possible a consensus. After that, I think you just have to go ahead with what you think is right.
NDTV's Cricket app. Android and iPhone. Fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. NDTV.com/apps.